Trying to explain this. I took down my original video for the Mercedes ML. I had some concerns about the waveform, the way it looked. So I reached out to another tech and he suggested that my scales were wrong. Drove me nuts. So I wound up going back. I'm in close to Philadelphia, so the car was in Jersey. So I had to arrange to go back to the car, and I did that today. Well, I spent a very long time on this car today, just checking everything, make sure I didn't miss anything or, skip over something. So I did that. I did an injector balance test. I did everything. I did relative compression tests. I started from square one. I did all that stuff. Still had the same issue where bank 2 compression was lower. So I was chasing that. That's exactly where I was with the first video. In doing that, I wound up doing the same thing. I wound up going in cylinder. Well, when I went in cylinder, turns out that I was right the first time. You'll see in the video in there, it has a restricted exhaust on bank 2 for sure. Pulled the O2 sensor out. Runs great. Revs, I took a capture of that as well. And I put a borescope down there. And the front cat is empty. I don't know where all that stuff is. There's a cat behind it, and there's a resonator behind that cat before it goes into like a central muffler for both banks. Anywhere from that central muffler up to just past that catalytic converter is where everything is. I'm guessing that everything from the front cat fell apart and is blocking up the second cat. That's my assumption. I didn't go that far. I want to go over some stuff here. This was relative compression test that I did. Same type of deal. One bank is low. Okay, this is cranking. All right, I pulled the number 11 fuse again, and I cranked it over. And this red here is the ignition strike. This kind of threw me for a loop today. I was really kind of confused as to what was going on. My theory is that when I pull that fuse for number 11, that controls a lot of things. It controls the cam sensor, probably a bunch of other sensors. So probably what happens is defaults right here. Don't know why, but when I went to bank 1 and did the same test, the same thing. It's at 360. I'm going to say that's normal for with that fuse out. If you look here, compression is about 107, right? And then right here, I'm about 2.5 psi. This is cranking only. That's about 0 psi, right? So on cranking, I got 2.5 psi, 3 up here actually. In the first video, I have bank 1 and bank 2, so I'm not going to pull both banks up. Right here, this is idle. This is at idle, and here is is the primary instead of using the amp clamp. This is still cylinder number 6, and right here is 0, and then right here is 18 psi, and we're about 120 psi. I contacted another tech, and he suggested that my scales were off because this looks so perfect and everything. So this was driving me crazy. So I had to go back and check it. This is what it running. Okay, it's an intake pressure transducer. Come over here, and this is to the best I could for the snap throttle. Snap throttle wasn't really working all that well. Right around here. This is me holding the throttle open. My peak pressure is at 170 psi. Pressure down here is 32 psi. Come over to here. This is after I pulled the O2 sensor on bank 2. You have 64 psi. Okay. I think it was washed out. I did put oil in there, and the compression did it did go back up. But look down here at the bottom. 0 psi. Should snap down to 0, which it is at 0. And you can see right here, 0 psi. It's a little bit, but it's all coming out of a O2 sensor hole there. All right, and we'll come over to the snap throttle. See, I was actually able to snap it this time. Okay, here's 0 psi, and a little bit there. That's 5 psi, but almost 3 psi. Now you got to remember, this is the whole bank is only coming out of an O2 sensor hole. But you can see it's now able to rev. I can't really go off of any of this stuff yet for any valve issues or nothing like that. This is the same compression test with the O2 sensor removed. Now that one might be washed out a little bit as well. My issue was that I didn't trust my tool. I wasted a couple hours on this thing when my initial diagnosis was correct, but I went the extra mile, and I even pulled the O2 out and I put a borescope in there, so I feel so much better. I don't know how you guys feel, but when you get in a situation where you're like, oh man, now I'm second guessing on a car, it keeps you up at night. It kept me up for a couple nights. Although I was right initially, I'm still glad that I did this, because now I can trust my tool, and that makes me a lot more confident. Yeah, confidence was pretty low after I talked to the other tech, and I mean, I agreed with him that everything looked good. Usually when you have a clogged exhaust like that, you would have like the pressure would just like kind of go up, because the piston goes up here, piston comes down here, piston goes back up here. So like I would expect, I mean, it's going up a little bit here, but I would expect this exhaust to basically follow something like that. You know what I mean? Up like that, and then boom, when the intake opens, shoot down. Didn't do that, so it really it's kind of freaking me out for a little. All right, so this thing's kicking my butt. Relative compression's low on this side. I'm going to go in cylinder soon, but I did a injector balance test. They're all pretty close. They're all within 2 psi. I don't think it's bad enough to cause whatever issue it is. It's like 1.5 to 2 psi there. This thing shuts the injectors off so fast. I got to keep going in and erasing it. It is such a pain in the butt. So far I've confirmed that with the scope, all the injectors can fire. All the ignition coils are firing. I confirmed that this bank is misfiring with the pulse sensor. I wanted to get all my basics done, everything recorded and saved, and I want to chase this compression. I'm going to go in cylinder here, let it cool down a little bit, but I think I'm going to go in number 6, see what's going on in cylinder, and I have to recheck my tool, because last time I was here when I did the in cylinder, the scales seem to be way off. I hope my tool's not damaged. The red is amperage for coil number 6, and the both primaries for coil number 6. It's all happening at 360. I'm really confused about that right now. PSI here, 100, it's about 107. And 3 psi. This is kind of like the same issue I was having last time, where I thought the scales were off. I'm gonna have to go on bank 1, and this is just cranking. This is cranking RPM. It's a cranking compression waveform, and I have what seems to be pretty low, 106 psi on cranking. Seems to me pretty low. All right. I don't know if you can see the sparks happening there, but I retested it. Okay, this is this side running. Okay, I got 17 psi. I think I still have the same issue as far as clogged exhaust here. It's the only thing that makes sense. The problem that I was having with the ignition strike happened in 360. I think that was just because I had the fuse out for the injectors trying to disable it. I don't know. I probably didn't know where number 1 was, because I think that also controls some other sensors. Pretty sure it does, cam sensor and everything. I'm going to have to pull this O2 sensor out. I really think it's a clogged exhaust here. I'm not seeing anything obvious other than that. I can't really rev it. I'm going to try to rev it, see what it looks like. Tried revving it, it won't rev. I think what I'm going to do is clear the codes again and try it over. Oh, I got it in the shop. Pulled the O2. She revs good. And yeah, this is 6. Pressure right around 1 psi-ish, right around there. Yeah, it's definitely Claude Cat. At least I know. I really didn't. My initial call was correct. This was, I guess, not a complete loss. Now I confirmed it and I can actually see it, but it is weird that it looks like that. I'm going to open up this is what it looks like with the O2 sensor in. That's with the O2 sensor in. Right here is pretty even, right? That's with the O2 sensor in. Well, come on. Just about 13 psi. We'll go back to the other one. Where's it at? So my O2 removed. I didn't put the other traces in there because at this point I just didn't feel like it was necessary to turn this one off. So you can see it's at 0 psi. 0 psi. Right here, that line is 0 psi. Didn't even put it at 0. Right there. Proof is in the pudding. Claude Cat. Hallelujah. Got the O2 out. I got it. Alright, I'm inside there. Got the side camera on. There's nothing in that cat. Probably all right here. We're down in here. That cat came apart. That thing's empty.